Today my guest is Paul Kimmel. Paul, how you doing?
I'm good, Dave. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Tell me what do you do?
I'm a technical evangelist for Developer Express.
That's a cool job. You work with a lot of technology.
Yeah, a lot of technology.
You work with Visual Studio sometimes?
Yeah, occasionally.
Let's talk about Visual Studio. Let's talk about Visual Studio 2010. It's been out for, what, a month? 6 weeks?
Yeah, a month. I lose track of that because, I get fairly early adopter, so for me it seems like it's been out and just buggy for a year or so.
Yeah, the rest of the planet's been using it for maybe just a few weeks.
Yeah, that's right.
But you're more familiar with the newer features. Tell me about some of the newer features of VS 2010.
Sure. I write a column for CodeGuru.com. It's a VB Today column. I've been doing it for 11 years. And I recently wrote a column on the things that VB developers will like about 2010. So a few of them that are there's cool ones, and then there's simple ones. And one of my favorites is no more line continuation. So you can use that little underscore line continuation if you're a glutton for punishment, but we don't have to anymore.
How does it know when the line's done then? How does it know the difference between an end of line and a line continuation?
White space.
Magic. An empty line.
Magic, yeah. It's white space magic.
All right, cool. What else?
Well, there's some simple features for Visual Studio. One is now you can drag and drop a code window over to another monitor, so multi-monitor support.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
As you know, you do the vertical and horizontal split, and you end up with very little real estate for editing and typing.
Yeah, this is kind of nice when you have your code on one monitor and you have like your debugging information on the other.
Or a reference document, like an XML document.
How would you call it? Yeah.
Yeah. For example, another new feature is the DLR, Dynamic Language Runtime. You can create dynamic objects, right? Mm-hmm. And a neat use for that is creating a wrapper for XML. So you can use a dynamic object and create a wrapper for your XML and sort of hide all that XML plumbing. And so in that case, when you're writing your dynamic object, you may want your XML document as a reference document. Put it on that other monitor, and it's out of your way, and you can still reference it.
Interesting.
Yeah, so some of these features blend naturally and work together well.
Yeah.
Another one is automatic properties.
No, what is that?
So an automatic property is a property where you don't explicitly implement the getter and setter.
Okay.
And the reason we...
C# is just get semicolon, set semicolon.
Get semicolon, set semicolon.
Yeah.
And in VB, it's more like a field statement, except it has the property keyword in it.
Okay.
Now the reason we have those is because we used to just have data, and data would get corrupt. Somebody came up with the idea that we needed functions to access our data, but then that required the developer to be responsible.
Write a lot of extra code.
And consistently call those functions.
Okay.
So languages like Object Pascal and Delphi and those things in the early 90s introduced the property method. Well, then what we found out is that that was a lot of extra code, and a lot of properties just had return and set the field.
Right.
Okay.
So why bother?
Why bother? Now we have automatic properties. Well, the reason we bother, and we have to bother, is because a lot of the .NET framework, when it does binding, for example, to grids, and uses reflection, it reflects on properties. Mm-hmm. So if you just said, well, if I have an automatic property without a getter and setter, right? Why not just use the field? Well,
that'll break some things.
That'll break some things.
Okay.
So there is a rationale for some of these things, but that does demonstrate that VB and C# are getting closer together. Another good one is VB lambda expressions came out as functions only. A lambda expression is simply an evolutionary step from the function, the anonymous method, to a much more condensed thing called a lambda expression, which is really just a smaller version.
I'm going to stop there because you know where I first learned about lambda expressions is from your link book.
Really?
I did.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
It's good to know.
Somebody read your book.
Link Unleashed for C#. Apparently some Chinese people read it because I got my Chinese copies recently. The lambda expressions were only functions. Now in VB we have lambda subs, so you don't have to return a value. So there's a balance there.
All right.
VB, the early release of lambda expressions for VB was function only, and a lambda expression is literally just a very condensed method.
Right.
So it's basically the next evolution of anonymous methods.
Okay. So now one of the changes is that you can do more with lambdas in Visual Studio.
We have lambda subs for VB now.
Okay.
So there's that balance. C# didn't make the distinction. VB did between functions and subs. Now we have lambda subs for VB.
Okay.
And now in addition to that, we have multi-line lambda expressions.
So you can create more complex lambda expressions.
You can add a couple lines of code now
Okay.
in your lambda expression. And these are some of the technologies that are underpinnings for generic delegates like action, predicate, and func. And those are used as arguments in a lot of extension methods,
Yeah.
like INnumerable.where and things like that.
Right.
And those also support a lot of the Lincoln infrastructure. So all very necessary, all very natural. It's good that they've arrived for VB.
Yeah. What else? Any other new features?
There's some simpler ones. We have reference highlighting. You click on a keyword or code word, and it will highlight that in your code everywhere it exists.
Yeah, it's a real subtle thing. I was using it for a week before I noticed that.
Yeah, it is a subtle thing, and then you can use, I think it's Control Shift down arrow and up arrow to navigate between them.
I didn't know that. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll try that one out.
And Developer Express, who I work for, we also have a new release of our product, version 10.1, and I did a fun blog on my Paul K blog site on Dev Express, and it was actually a Code Rush template for dynamic objects.
Okay.
So I sent it to Mark Miller. He invented Code Rush, and maybe if I'm lucky, he'll integrate that into Code Rush for us.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah. How about so the highlighting things? These are usability features. They don't really change the language. They don't change the code, but they change the IDE and make it easier for developers to get some things. There's some other things in there that are enhancements to the developer experience in the Visual Studio IDE.
Yeah, I'm gonna get my cheat sheet because I actually, as I said, I wrote a column on here.
Okay.
And it's sometimes old brains. Old brains, hard to remember. So the navigate to search for symbol. It's essentially what it'll do is if you type in keywords or search phrases, it'll allow you to quickly navigate to that point in code. So it creates sort of a hyperlink in the navigate to window.
Okay. All right. And IntelliSense has changed.
IntelliSense has changed. There's a completion and suggestion mode, and I can never remember exactly what they are. I just know it's supposed to be better.
Okay.
Well, we can't live without IntelliSense.
IntelliSense is awesome. So I actually know this one. That there's things like if you just put in the initials of a keyword, like you have a method called get all customers, you can type in GAC and it understands that.
Right. Yeah, that's this
all
one.
that. So things
So
like
it
that.
filters what it returns a little smarter.
Yeah,
It
you
figures
can use
what that is.
substrings of it and things like that
Right.
as opposed to just the beginning of the word.
Yep, and generate code from usage. That's another developer experience.
What is that?
Well, it's now you can type class.member, and if it doesn't exist, you'll get some hyperlinks, some smart tags, and you can right-click on that, and the IDE will generate those classes and members for you.
Well, that's interesting. So that was something that the Dev Express would do for you in the past.
Code Rush. To be honest with you, Code Rush does a much better job at it.
Okay.
At it. I would like to think maybe they even got the idea for this from Code Rush.
I was
a
thinking the
little
same
bit.
thing, which is not
It's not a bad thing.
If there's a need for it, people are using it.
Yeah.
Building a product that pushes those third-party vendors out to study more.
Yeah, genius is standing on the shoulder of greatness.
There
So, Code Rush does a really, really nice job of it. There's a few things that I found wanting in generate from usage, but it's still better than nothing.
Right.
I can type, foo.bar, and with a right click, it'll generate my class and my bar member for me. And
Okay.
it's nice stuff. It's good stuff.
Yeah. Anything else?
No, just want to do a shameless plug for Dr. Dobbs. I have a guru blog on Dr. Dobbs now, dj.com.
Okay.
And that's a kick for me because for those of you who know Dr. Dobbs or follow it or know something of the history, Steve Wozniak and Dennis Ritchie were some of the early contributors to Dr. Dobbs. So
Now you're in the class with those guys.
I'm the last in the class. I'm the last guy in the class. Anchorman. Yeah, that's a nice way to put it.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much, Paul.
you.
I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Technology and friends. That's good. Crowbar love is the first thing that comes to mind, and I was working with some developers, some technologists who worked in technology. They were my friends, and we used to play Half-Life, and I would whack them in the head with a crowbar. That was my weapon of choice. And so for my birthday that year, they bought me a crowbar.